welcome to Bird Fans Forever podcast. This is episode 9. I'm not holding up fingers anymore. So episode 9. Today we have Matt Chastain. We'll be getting to him here shortly. He played for ISU from 2017 to 2020. Before we get to Matt, I'd like to thank you for listening to our podcast. Remember, you can listen to the audio version on any one of your podcast app listeners, right? Apple, Google, Spotify, blah, blah, blah. And then also on YouTube, right? Episode 9, we are going to go and talk to Matt Chastain. All right, here we go. We're here with Matt Chastain, ISU Redbird from 2018 to 2020. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
17 to 20.
17 to 20.
17.
Perfect, dude.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm 55. You're in your early 20s. You got to be a lot sharper. Come on.
I know.
All right.
I know.
All right. So we're going to get started.
Yeah, Matt, tell us, one of the questions we like to ask everybody is, how did you ultimately end up at ISU? Tell us that story.
Well, coming out of high school, I didn't have much going for me in terms of schools. The summer before my senior year of high school, I had hurt my knee surgery. So I didn't really get a chance to talk to any schools or play. And then really late in high school is probably, if you're familiar with postseason Illinois high school basketball, it wasn't until sectionals, so 5 games in or so, that I got my first offer. Then we ended up playing a little bit longer, one state, and had a lot more come in. And I think my final 3 schools was Utah, Loyola, and Illinois State. So a little different, all of them. But I ended up going to Loyola for a year, and I guess it just didn't work out for me. I got hurt up there. I think it just came down to I want to be a little closer to home. When coming out of high school, maybe that wasn't where my mindset was at. So I only had one other offer when I transferred, and that was Wright State. But one of my big reasons for leaving was to be closer to home, and that's 4 hours away. So I actually ended up just enrolling at ISU. Couldn't legally talk to the team, anything. So I just enrolled in ISU. I started first semester summer class at the end of May. And after the first class, I called Mueller. Hey, I'm enrolled at ISU. Is there any chance we can talk? Because it had only been a year since I talked to him in high school. He says, well, I'm in Ireland right now, so I'll get back to you in a week. So I'm doing classes, and I'm working on the farm back home. And I finally get a call back from him. He says, well, come into the office. I go in and talk, and the first thing he says when I get in there, he goes, it's about damn time. And started playing. Started workouts. So I started as a walk-on back here and went from there.
So you got to Loyola, and then I think you said you tore your ACL, right?
Yeah, so it's middle of the second half of the third game. Guy was dribbling right, pull up from 15. I went to contest, go off one leg, and I just felt it give and pop. It was another one of those things where I was on the floor in a lot of pain. Trainer comes out, it's like I just told him I tore my ACL, because I had done it 4 years before that too.
Same leg. So I had 2 ACLs in my left knee, and then a week later or so I had an MRI, and they said that I had torn my ACL and that I was out for the season and needed surgery. Been there.
So you come back to ISU, you're a walk-on. You obviously have to rehab that whole season, right?
Yeah. So I spent, I had surgery in end of December of 2016, and they weren't going to clear me till January 1 of 2018. So I'm here for 6-7 months before I can really start doing anything. And when I started coming back into it, it was only a couple weeks in, maybe a month, I started experiencing a lot of pain in that knee again. So they ended up shutting me down for I don't know, till June. They shut me down for 4 months, 5 months after that. And then, like I was telling you before, I come back and my first practice back, I had simple play you make all the time, and hurt it again and tear my meniscus, and I knew it right away. So I've already been out for 18 months, and now I got to be out for 2 more months right after that.
So a meniscus, but right after you had the surgery, you were, like, I've had my meniscus done multiple times. You were pretty much up walking, and then that's a lot easier rehab than ACL, right?
Yeah, so much easier. I remember it was maybe a week after I had the surgery, I was ready to start practicing again. Yeah. But Munn said, pump the brakes because you've just been out for 18 months. It doesn't hurt to be out for another 2. So
it does not, no.
Which is smart at the end of the day, but you want to start getting back in there after you've been out for so long.
Well, and what I don't think fans realize is your clock starts the minute you step on campus, right? Those 5 years, there's nothing that stops that 5 years. Look at Tyrese Bryson with his broken hand. If you're lucky enough to be one of the, and dare I say lucky, that's probably a bad way to say it, for those that played during COVID and get this free year, I mean, that's an absolutely gift, right? I mean, I would have loved to play another year of college basketball. But
yeah, sometimes you can get lucky and get the 6th year, but I think that's in very specific circumstances. And the fact that I had transferred, so I'm redshirting my freshman year, I transfer, so I have to redshirt another year. So I knew leaving Loyola I was going to only play 3 years of college basketball.
Yeah. All right, cool. Steve, we're going to talk about UCFS.
So
go.
Yeah, let's talk about your first year. A couple of those games. Okay, so you the team's coming off the year before they played Loyola in the championship game.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
The year you redshirted, and then you guys have you go through non-conference, a little bit over 500 and stuff like that. You had some good wins, overtime win against BYU, and then of course there's that opening MVC game. We'll just say the half-court shot elbow. Enough said there. Moving on.
Video.
You guys, you win 6 out of the next 8 games, and then you host Loyola at home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they're 1 game ahead of ISU. You're hosting them at home. Let's talk about that game a little bit, especially since it's against the school where you had just transferred from.
Yeah, that was probably one of the more fun games I ever played in. And it was nice because, like you said, we had a rough non-conference. We lose on a half-court buzzer beater to Valpo. Then it started to feel like we started to put some pieces together and figure out how to play basketball. So I think the 2 games before that, we beat Indiana State by 15. We go to Drake. I think we're leading by 20 the entire game and win by 15 or so. So then we come into, and I think Drake and Loyola were tied for 1, and we're playing them back-to-back. So we beat Drake bad. Then we come into ISU, and I think it was a sold-out game. I knew every player on the other team. I played with them for a year. And I think early on we got out ahead pretty early, and we held a 15 or 16-point lead the entire game. And those are the best games. They're the most fun to play in because you're playing a really good team. You feel like you're putting the pieces together. And you have the game plan done. You know exactly what you're doing. You know what you're supposed to do. And then to see it, sometimes you know all these things, but it doesn't pan out and you lose games. But to be able to be in the lead the entire game and know we should have been there is a great feeling.
And then you had played up at Loyola earlier. We lost by 3. It was a close game, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think people remember, so Drake and Loyola ended up tying for first. We beat Drake twice that year. You beat Loyola at home, and then you only lose to Loyola by 3. Can I talk about that game as well? I mean, you guys played well against the top teams in the conference that year.
Yeah, I think we played at Loyola before we played them at Redbird.
Correct.
And I think they had they're beating us by 8 or 10 or something for most of the first half, and we go into the second half, and then we put 5 stops in a row, and on the offensive side, I think Keyshawn Evans hit a deep 3, tough shot. I think Leak, he had a tough turnaround 15-footer. He was always great at those mid-range shots. Phil had a nice little turnaround hook shot over Krutwig, I think it was. And then I had a putback dunk. So we put up 7-8 points in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And next thing you know, it's a 1-point game for the last 6 minutes of the game or whatever it was. Obviously, it didn't turn out the way we wanted, but going away to a really good team, smaller gym that's sold out, and being able to kind of claw back after 30 minutes of okay basketball, I think that's another thing that kind of jump-started that first half of the conference season for us.
In the fans, so that's the first time you played back at Loyola, right?
Yeah, that might have been the first time I'd been back there. So it had been 2 years since I left. It was not the most welcoming,
Yeah, that's what we want to hear about the fans.
Huh?
We want to hear about the fans. You were telling us off air what the fans were doing. This is some fun stuff.
Yeah, so earlier in the season, I hadn't been playing a ton. I'd been banged up, and then 2 games or so before Loyola, I was starting to play solid minutes. So I'm starting at Loyola, and as soon as I walk out for warm-ups, there's people chirping at me, saying things, and then the game starts, and there wasn't one possession where they were not yelling and screaming and cussing at me, and the entire game nonstop. If I had a foul, it was boos and all this, and you should have never left, and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And then we go in for halftime, and I think we were down 7, 8, 9, or whatever it was, not playing great. And I think there's 8 or 10 fans lined up waiting outside the locker room. And so we're pissed off, we're losing. Now you're dealing with these 10 people yelling and hollering. And what I remember, I think they waited there until after we came out of the locker room, too. So it was interesting. It doesn't bother me. It's a fun experience. But I think
how did that put back dunk feel?
it felt good. They didn't
felt good.
They didn't yell at me back down the court.
No.
Especially when it's at the end of a 10-0 run in a short span.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So Matt, the next season, you lost a lot of those seniors and stuff like that, and there was some roster turnover. But you guys you start off 2-0, beat a good Belmont team, right? Arkansas Little Rock, and then you're out though. You broke your hand.
Yeah, really early, second or third practice.
So
how'd you do
tell
that?
us about that.
Yeah.
Well, I was playing defense, and I had gotten off balance. But we had J.C. Hillsman driving the ball, and he always drove. Quick guy for being 6'6", 230 pounds. And I'm just off balance, and I try and slide in for a charge, and I fall back to catch myself, and then my body landed on top of my hand and just squished it and broke my thumb. But after that, they casted it up, and coach said, "Get back in." So I practiced for. I think he gave me 6 days off, and then I was practicing with a cast on.
So what was?
And it was on my right hand, so I couldn't hardly do anything. I couldn't shoot the ball. Dribbling was tough.
So was your first game in the Virgin Islands?
No, I played against UCF.
Okay.
So I had one game there, and I wasn't supposed to play in that game either, because I get my cast off. And then 2 days before that game, I tweaked my back and did something, and I couldn't stand up. I couldn't, let alone walk or run. Somehow Munn was able to help me out and played through that game. And the ending of that one was tough. I think we had played a pretty good game. I think everyone played a good game. It wasn't one or two guys doing really well, but everyone played a good game. And we had a play drawn up at the end of the game. I think maybe 15 seconds left, and we're down 1, maybe 2. I came up. Zach pitched it to me because Zach normally stayed outside on the three-point line because he's a three-point shooter. And then he comes up to get the ball back, and he back cuts, bounce pass to him, and we must have just bobbled it, got knocked off a little out of bounds, and either stepped out or traveled or something. But we still had a chance to get that back there at the end. I think we had a foul. They may have missed a free throw. We're only down 2. But we're streaking down the court late. And I think Zach missed one back iron, good-looking 3. So we dropped that one.
Yeah, I remember that backdoor cut. That was open. That was a good play. And then you guys go out to Virgin Islands, right? And you play a Cincinnati team who's all perennial, good team always. Tell us about that game and some of the players that were on there.
Yeah, so we played them our first game. So we were able to prepare for them, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days before we played them, which is unusual. And we get down there, and we get going, and they had, I think, the reigning American League Player of the Year, Jared Cumberland. His cousin was a 6'7" shooter. They had 2 7-footers on the team. I think they were supposed to be in and out of the top 25. They're supposed to be a really good team. And we're coming off a tough loss against UCF. You're flying to another country, getting settled in. When we come out playing really fast and more importantly, we're playing smart. They can't do anything against us. I think they're doing a ball screen back cut, and they can't get anything going. We held them to 65 points, and I may just be making things up, but I think they were scoring high 70s, low 80s at the time. And then we had, similar to the UCF play, except it was flipped. Zach was passing to me out of the right corner, and he got it to me. They went to double him. They got it to me. Dunked it. I think we're up. I think it's a tie game at that point, 63-63. And they just give the ball to Cumberland, their best player in the league. And he drives the ball real hard, makes a real tough layup there at the end. And again, it was almost identical to UCF. We're streaking down the court there at the end, and good-looking 3 goes off back iron, and we end up dropping a second straight tough one in a row.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were so close to starting that season 4-0. I don't think people realize that,
Yeah, no, you get a couple balls going your way, a couple of shots fall your way, and you start off 4-0, and your attitude's a lot different after that.
Exactly.
You try not to let that affect you, but you drop 2 tough ones in a row, and then you got to turn around and play Western Kentucky, who's a really good team, the next day. It's a tough one.
Yep. So fast forward, you're going through that season. You already talked about you had the broken hand, the back, ailments as well. You've had knee surgeries and stuff like that. And ultimately, we know that you decide to hang it up at the end of the season. But as you're going through that season, is it starting to cross your mind that this might be the last season, or is that something that just happened at the end of the season?
No, it started. I don't think it changed how I played or did anything. I still tried to dive on the court, play really hard, and do all that. But you get these small things here and there that start adding up. The knees are one thing, but you break your hand, you start having back issues. Small things like I got elbowed in the face, teeth went through my lip. It's just all these small things really start to get annoying. And then I'll throw in a funny story about Moeller here that I enjoy against Bradley. So we're playing against Bradley at third place, I don't know, middle of the conference season. And I think they'd beat us earlier in the season or something. We had the scouting report down. And for whatever reason or another, there was just games where I was a half step slow or a step slow. And was trying not to be. I obviously didn't want to be like that. But I remember, I think his name was Luke Van Bree, 6'9", good shooter. He always had a 10-foot over the left shoulder fadeaway. That's all he did. Everyone knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I'm guarding him. And again, I'm just a half step late. Mueller calls a timeout, or we go into media. It's a 2-minute timeout. And he's yelling at me for what seems like a minute and a half of the 2-minute timeout. And I think it's part of his intensity of it, because I deserved it. I wasn't trying to do it, but I deserved it. And I sat straight face, didn't make an expression, didn't do anything, wasn't trying to talk back or give anything. Then he pauses for a couple seconds, and he looks up at one of the coaches and says, "I'm tired of looking at him. Get him out of here," because I didn't make a reaction to him, is what I thought.
Yeah.
But I say that because the next day, we go into practice, and my knee's blown up, and I can't walk. I can't move. And so I'm going through practice, and it's just slowly getting worse and worse. And we lose to Bradley, so the coaches aren't happy. And so they're really not happy with me because they think I'm, not trying hard or something. And I ended up having an MRI a couple days later because it didn't get better. Or I had it drained and then MRI or something. And torn meniscus, I have to have a surgery late January. And this is right after, in mid-January, I had some work or something done on my back, some shots. And so you get your back and then a knee surgery in the season. And I think that was kind of the writing on the wall for me. I think for myself and the coaches who maybe think, we can get them rehab stronger in the off season, I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I came back to the last 5 games of the year and played very spotty minutes and just didn't feel the same. I've always thought it's one thing to have your surgeries in the off season, but if you're having them in January, it's kind of tough to come back from because you're so beat down already. And, just a little difference makes, a big difference for a surgery.
Especially at the game speed, right? And then here's the other thing is, like I tell people, like you, came off a broken foot my junior year, couldn't start running until first day of practice. You don't have a game speed, right? There's different between being in shape and being in game shape. And for those that haven't played, it's kind of hard to explain. But that timing and that game shape is so important to your success. And like you said, being that half split second off is all a guy that you're playing against needs to burn you, right? And
yeah, exactly. And I spent every off season getting wildly out of shape because I'm having some knee surgery or I'm shut down for a while. And then, like you said, you're coming back at the beginning of October and you don't really get your legs or your lungs until after Christmas break. But in the meantime, you've basically missed 14 games.
Yeah.
Or maybe not missed, but you're not helping out as much as you should.
I played like dog crap, right? I mean, I purely admit that, right?
Yeah. And it's frustrating for yourself and for the team because you don't, hey, what kind of player are we getting today out of him? You don't know. And, as a player, you don't want to be that guy. You always want to be good. You don't want to take days off, but sometimes it just doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
That's kind of what me and Coach talked about after the season. We had our meeting, and it wasn't really much of a conversation. It was, yeah, this is probably the smart decision. This is what doctors are saying, what Munn's recommended, and just how I felt on a day-to-day basis. So it wasn't much of a decision. It's still a really hard decision to make, but the time had kind of run its course.
And dude, you were high flying, you were diving on everything, right? The minute you're diving on the floor, you are a target for everybody else because with your quickness, you were there quicker. For my advantages, I was slow and big, and so I would get there that half second or second too late. Now you got a 6'10", 260 guy hitting you, right? It's a no-win situation, right? And so, because I was always amazed that you were on the ground, you were in every scrum. It seemed like every time you turn around, you were on the ground getting the ball. And you got to do that to win the 50-50 balls, right? People don't get that, right? If you don't win the 50-50 balls and you don't control the glass and get more free throws, you don't win games. And so, because everybody is good.
That's what Mullard always harped on too. You need everyone on the team doing it, getting on the floor 50-50 balls, or you need at least one person trying to get everything, because it makes a world of a difference to the opponents, thinking that now they got to start hustling more and getting on the ball if they want to get it.
Yeah. So I mean, Matt, I'll just tell you, the thing I loved about your game was your energy. Okay, it's just what Pemberton was saying. So let me tell you a story. So, Jon Diener and I, we had season tickets, so we saw you play a lot. And Pemberton saw you, but he sees you on TV. And watching on TV is different than watching live. So we're down in St. Louis, right? And your first year, and he's down there with us. So it's the first time he's actually seeing you live, okay? And you're just doing some balls to the wall stuff out there, diving, jumping like over the backboard, things like that. You're Mr. High Energy, right? And he's just like, you look at this guy. You look at this guy. He's like getting all stoked up over you, So, I mean, one of your strengths, I thought, was that energy you brought to the game. But I think, it also probably was one of the things that made you prone to injury. Just going in there head first, just relentless. Relentless.
No, it definitely didn't help, but is kind of the only way I knew how to play. I figured that's what's going to help out the team. That's kind of how I got used to playing. So I think if I tried to come back for my 5th year and I don't play like that, then I'm not really helping the team, and they might be better off trying to pick up a guy who can do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you call it, Steve, energy. It's the love and passion for the game, right? It's the getting out there and competing. So, okay, all right, one of the things I'm hugely jealous is I never got to do is go to Europe. And, Matt, you guys went to Italy. Let's hear about Italy.
Yeah, those trips are fun. They're always fun. I got lucky. I ended up going to 2 European trips because we went my freshman year and then again when I was a junior. But those trips are a lot of fun. I think the way Muller handles them, or coaches handle them, is a lot of them see that what some people may not know if they haven't went is you get 10 full practices in the summer leading up to it. So it's 2.5, 3-hour practice, and then you can get extra workouts, you do lifting, all that other stuff, but it's an extra 10 official practices, which doesn't sound like much, but it makes a huge difference. I think the year before we went, we had a handful of newcomers and freshmen. I think we probably had 6 or 7 of them, and having those 10 practices before your season starts makes a huge difference. You don't have to do so much there at the beginning of the year, like put in a man or a zone defense or basic plays. And then once you go over to Italy, that's kind of the players' time. Coach let us kind of go off on our own. You have some tours, but it's mostly go see what you want to see and explore. So I know me and some of our teammates and the managers, we would go walk around and hopefully not get lost. You have no service, no maps or anything, so you kind of go by landmarks. And I know one night we got walking around late. Next thing you know, we turn a corner. It's the Roman Coliseum at 2 a.m. or something. And we're like, well, at least we know how to get to the hotel now, But stuff like that is stuff I'll never forget. There's not very often you can go see things like that. And the only people you have when you're there are your teammates, the managers and the coaches. So you're spending all your time with them. There's no sneaking away and being by yourself if you wanted. Then also you get to go play games over there. You're used to beating up on each other all summer, and you haven't played another opponent since the previous March. So it's a lot of fun to get out there against other people and see how you guys are and what you need to work on when you get back. But those are a lot of fun. I know when we went, we played some team from Lithuania, and things got chippy at the end, and everyone ended up on the court and at the buzzer, right before the buzzer, and it was get out of there and get back to the bus.
What was the Italy trip? I just seem to recall this. I'm just remembering this. Someone had never ridden a bike before or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So one of the days we went on a bike tour, and you go rent out bikes and ride them around I think we were in Florence, and you ride them around for a couple hours, and we get there, and Dedrick Boyd says, Coach, I've never ridden a bike, or I don't know how to ride a bike, or whatever it was. And everyone's kind of joking with him, messing with him. Didn't believe him. He tried to hop on one and couldn't ride one. So Muller said, well, me and you will take the tandem bicycle. So DB and Muller are riding around Florence, front to back in a tandem bicycle for 2.5 hours. And then we get to this big open square. There's a good amount of people there, but enough room. So we parked and we said, we're going to teach Dedrick how to ride a bike. And people are looking at us funny. We're all parked. We're standing around cheering on Dedrick. And slowly people start to pick up that he doesn't know how to ride a bike and we're teaching him. So we get a crowd of, it had to be 40, 50 people standing around watching. And he's kind of coasting. He stays up for a while, and everyone, there's 25 of us and 50 other people just cheering and hollering for Dedrick how to ride a bike.
That's awesome.
And then on top of it, you're all giants, right?
Yeah.
Because even we talk about, that guard's short. Well, that's 6'2", 6'3". That ain't short, right? And so, yeah.
No, not at all. So we kind of stick out like a sore thumb over there.
That is awesome. And Matt, you said get done with practice at 7, and you sit there sometimes in the locker room telling dumb jokes or calling each other names for 2 hours. And next thing you know, it's
9:30 or 10 o'clock, and it's a Wednesday night, and you have class at 8 in the morning. You're like, well, I didn't exactly do anything I was supposed to tonight, so I guess we'll try again tomorrow. And tomorrow comes and you do the same thing. You sit around and talk about nothing. You talk trash to each other and make fun of each other, and no one can prove anything in the locker room at 8 o'clock at night, so you end up sitting there and poking at each other all night.
It's the brotherhood, man, and that's what.
So speaking of talking trash, so you played baseball in high school, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen some of your posts. It seems like you're a baseball fan too.
A little bit. Bit.
So there's a post up there of you in high school, and you pitched like a shutout for like 6 innings and stuff like that. So, do you ever talk to Taylor that you're the better pitcher, or?
Well, funny thing was, I lived with Taylor for all 4 years that I was here and that he was here. We were in the dorms together, and he was always a big baseball fan. I played it in high school because that's what my buddies did, and it was enjoyable to be outside and do that whole thing. But Taylor was big into baseball, and I remember we stopped playing basketball the same off season, and so we're still living together. And he starts throwing the baseball around. He's like, I'm going to go try and play baseball. I'm like, well, hell, if you do that, I'll go do that, Taylor. I know I can do this. And he stuck with it a little more than me. But, yeah, I didn't let him live it down until he finally signed in and said, okay, well, I guess you might have me. Hey.
The year afterwards, did he have you, catch him for him so you could get warmed up and stuff like that?
No, he would take his little brother lived with us too. He'd snag him at 7 in the morning when he's trying to sleep and say, "Doug, let's go." So I avoided that duty.
So we have to ask you this question. There's been lots of talk on the Redbird board about your hair. Okay, it got longer. The longer you stayed at ISU.
It did.
So. Coach Muller, proponent or opponent of the hair?
I don't think he could have hated it anymore. And he let me know once a month at least. And when I got here, it wasn't near this long. So it wasn't so bad at the beginning, and he still made comments about it then. And this was, when I was 19. So by the time I was 22, 23, yeah, I'm surprised he kept me on the team that long.
Was your mom a proponent?
No, not really.
No.
I don't think many people were or are proponents of it, but that's all right.
So when was the last time you had cut it?
Well, I get it trimmed up. But after I stopped playing, or maybe the year before, I cut 8 or 10 inches of it off. So it cleaned it up a little bit more. Didn't look so bad. At least I didn't think. But it hasn't been short since, I don't know, 6 years or so.
Well, and you got a full-time job, so you probably don't have to cut it ever again if you don't want. So,
yeah, I mean, I got the job, so they didn't care too much, I guess.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up with Matt. Matt, thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure to watch you play. For episode 9, we are a wrap, and Mr. Engineer, take us out.